Hi everyone, Trina Phoenix here, and this is 4.6, and we were starting on page 3, let me see, I need some glasses, 357, and we were going to go into more about Mary Magdalene and Mary Sophia, and some of the other research that they did about Mary Magdalene was that she was also known as Mary of Bethany. And there's a lot about her and the Messiah and being, companions and husband and wife. And to be called rabbi or teacher, according to Jewish law in that day, he would have had to be married to be having those titles. And if they were right, he knew he was going to be sacrificed as a king. And that's why they called him the King of the Jews. So, sorry about that. So with that sacrifice, it's so crazy. There's so much information that talks about how it's potentially that Mary Magdalene was the wife of Jesus. And that would make sense that the Holy Grail that the Knights Templar were trying to protect would have been the bloodline. So the Grail would have actually been Mary. She would have actually been the Grail. And it's funny when you look at the Last Supper in Da Vinci's portrait, a lot of people are starting to decode that. And where John is, they're saying John is probably, it looks like John is Mary. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's also a lot of speculation that the book of John was actually written by Mary. So these are interesting things to look at, and I thought they were always kind of wonderful. I have kids playing games too, so if you guys hear any noises, it's the kids, they're playing. So to me it's amazing because it would only make sense to me that this man or this master or whomever or whatever the name was, it's like all of that to me kind of is like irrelevant for the visions and the memory that I have of a being called the Lord, and past memory of a time of watching a wonderful human being who was teaching the master teachings of like the Far East was more what he was teaching. They were teaching this stuff, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. And when that marriage happens inside, it awakens the pineal gland and you become anointed, or you become Messiah, or you become Christ. And that was what he was teaching. And it seems that Mary Magdalene was a priestess, and she had a very high understanding of the things that he had learned and that he was teaching. And I think that's why there was so much animosity towards her, because she could understand things I think that some of the other apostles were struggling with. And why did he love you the most, and why did he kiss her on the mouth often? This is definitely telling signs that they were extremely close, and that they adored one another, and that they worked together. And even in the Last Supper portrait, they're wearing exact opposites of each other with their clothing and their position leaning against each other, forming a perfect V or an M, which would be another representation of marriage and Mary Magdalene. So it's very interesting to me, all of these things that have come out with these hidden Nag Hammadi scriptures and the Dead Sea Scrolls. And you got to figure these are authentic texts that were before the changes of the councils of Nicaea and all of the changes that we saw in the original books that were found. So I think it's very interesting that all this stuff is surfacing at this specific point in time in our history. And I think it's all being done right now for very important reasons. And it's about balancing what we know about masculine and feminine, and what is sacred union. And so next, we were going into, they talk about the sacred union, and that's on page 356. It says, one of Jesus's most famous parables is that he who has the faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. Yet, what is a mustard seed? Is it the Vesica Pisces or the Ichthyius, the Jesus Christian fish symbol? Is it that Jesus taught his initiates a shape created by the overlapping of two circles represented the perfect union? Greek cosmology used the language of a number to symbolize the process of the emanation through which the entire universe comes into manifestation. This begins with the unity of one, representing God, which creates the two, and then all else flows from this. The divine Son, whether it was through or thought to be Jesus, Horus, or Apollo, is born from the Vesica Pisces and becomes the mediator that lies between the realms of form and the pure, unadulterated realms of the spirit. This mediator contains in itself both oneness and multiplicity. Created through the merger of the male and the female in partnership, this is how the world comes into being. Jesus would have known all of this, having been an initiate in all great mystery teachings. The great mystery teachings, let me turn this off, drawn so that each circle touches the other's center. This specific shape produces an opening to the womb from which all are born, the geometric shape and patterns of the universe. The first three shapes to emerge are the triangle, the square, and the pentagon, containers of the ratios in relationship required to generate all regular shapes and forms that can be constructed using a geometer's compass, straight edge, and pencil. This balance between the male and the female is in essence a doorway for enlightenment. And it was the partnership model demonstrated by Yeshua and Miriam. See, Yeshua, from my visions, I think that would have been more closer to his name. He was not called Jesus. I don't know why, but most of us addressed him as Lord. And in the first few decades after Christ, this model was adopted by the earliest disciples who traveled throughout the Mediterranean, teaching in pairs and using the sign of the fish to indicate their knowledge of the sacred union. But this partnership model was abandoned when Paul decreed that female disciples should not have equal status as to men. Knowing that the people of Judea were not trained in such esoteric mysteries and had inherited the gender prejudices of the Pharisees and Sadducees, who were completely male-dominated, Jesus spoke in parables about the concepts in the Gospel of Matthew 22, 1 through 10. He tells the story of a king who holds a marriage banquet for his son, but the guests find excuses to avoid attending. Here, Jesus is giving us a metaphor for the marriage of the sacred union. Many are invited, but few have the wisdom to attend. This is the cornerstone that the builders of the church rejected, writes Margaret Starbird. Clearly, the Roman-dominated world of the first century was not ready to embrace the gospel of gender equality and inclusiveness. But the seed of this radical doctrine was planted at the very heart of the story, the seed of the kingdom of God, both within and around us. is in our midst. This is the picture that she shows of that geometry of the Christian fish and how it forms the triangle, the square, the pentagon. All of these form out of the Vesica Pisces. And see, right here is the Christian fish through that. So that is the original symbol, the Vesica Pisces. And like I said, the secret societies and the underground societies, they all had symbology that they spoke through. So obviously when they made or showed that symbol, they knew that they were safe to discuss and speak about these teachings. Because, like I said, from what I can remember about that time is everybody was afraid to die for this information. It was literally, they would kill you if they thought that you had knowledge of it. And that's pretty brutal. But that's what I remember that was truly happening in that time. So it says figure 18.6. Greek cosmology used the language of numbers and symbols. The process through which the entire universe comes into being, beginning with the unity of the one that split itself into two creating the Vesica Pisces, or the divine doorway of sacred union. This is a doorway through which the unmanifest realms can enter into the worlds of form. It is the shape of a woman's yoni, and the opening where the seed of life comes out of a man's phallus. It is also the shape of the eye, which is the window to the soul. Mary Magdalene, Mary Sophia. The Mary Magdalene has long puzzled scholars, for there was no village of Magdala at the time when Mary and Jesus lived. So this is obviously a title of some sort. Historian Barbara Walker tells us that Magdalene means she of the temple tower, a reference to the triple tower in Jerusalem, one tier of which bore the name of the Queen Miriam, the incarnation of the goddess Mari. This is also a reference to the Hebrew Song of Songs, when the Magdalene is called the Watchtower. This goes back to a time when the priestly women of Isis and Nephthys were keeping watch to protect the young Horus, the king who would one day restore light to the kingdom of Egypt at a time when the Dark Lord Set, who had murdered Osiris, was in power. This lineage of the Magdalene sisters was passed on to the Jews at the time when King Solomon married a princess of Egypt. This sacred order of priestess women was then sheltered in the temple of Asherah, built by Solomon, at a time when both male and female aspects of God were honored. You will recall that in the Holy of Holies, within the temple, above the Ark of the Covenant, there were two statues of the male and the female entwined in an act of conjugal love. However, in the years following the Jewish exile, this spiritual order of priestess had to go underground because of the sanctions against women holding spiritual power in Jerusalem. So Mariana, Mary Magdalene, Mary Salome, and Mary Jacobi were all priestess of this order, who were hidden within the innermost ranks of the Essenes. Essene, that is the teachings, I think, that was the most loved, were the teachings of the Essenes. The term Magdala has also been translated by biblical scholars to mean great. So Mary Magdalene would mean Mary the Great. In the Greek, her title was H. Magdalena, I can't say that, sorry, whose numerical meaning is 153. In the esoteric teachings of gematria, a Hebrew literary device that encodes sacred numbers into sacred text, this is the number of fishes that were caught in the net in the Gospel of John, a number linked to the Vesica Pisces, or the vessel of the fish. The shape has long been universally associated with the goddess of love. It is the chalice of creation, the doorway to life, and the womb of the Sacred Mother, through which the universe is born. To the initiate, this number and name marks Mary Magdalene as the sacred vessel or container, or keeper of the Holy Grail. Gnostics thought of Mary as an incarnation of Sophia herself, the mother of wisdom. It is from Sophia that we get the word philosophy, meaning lover of wisdom. To the Gnostics, Sophia is the great mother who existed above and below all things. She is the essence of love, while her counterpart, the Father, is the essence of truth. Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, teaches that the divine couple set the entire universe into motion. These are the two perfected ones who dwell in the cosmic egg, the cosmic egg. And it is their interaction that creates the eternal dance of life. They are the yin and the yang of Taoism, the male and the female most high. Kabbalah teaches that the Kether, the unknowable God, split itself into two, creating Binah, the Divine Father, and Chokmah, Sophia, the wise Divine Mother. It is from this dyad that all else is born. They, in turn, create the Son and the Daughter of God. She is the feminine soul of the universe, who lives within all things. Gnostics referred to the mother and daughter as Sophia the Greater and Sophia the Lesser. Sophia the Greater is the womb that generates all levels of being as her child. She is Ma'at, or truth, the personification of wisdom. In turn, this great mother gave birth to a daughter who was an image of herself, Sophia the Lesser, a Gnostic gospel called the Sophia of Jesus the Christ, discovered in a papyrus code in 1896, gives us insight into these matters. Jesus is speaking in this codex. I desire that you understand the first man is called the begetter, mind, who is complete in himself. He reflected with the great Sophia, his consort, and revealed his first begotten androgynous son. His male name is called the first begotten Son of God. His female name is the first begettress Sophia, Mother of the universe. Some call her love. Now, the first begotten is called Christ. the first androgynous male, which was both male and female, Sophia. I think another name, they call it Christ, but another name is the Holy Spirit. I think that would be the other name, one of the other names of this. So Gnostic theology claims that the lower worlds of matter were created by the daughter Sophia, who lost touch with her own heavenly origin. In her sorrow, she went in search of the light of her divine Father, but she became lost. In her distress and confusion, she brought forth a likeliness of herself, but without the Father or her male counterpart. The world that she inadvertently created was out of balance. In the Gnostic teachings, she accidentally created a monster called Aldebaoth, and he is the first archon, ruler of darkness. Gnostics also refer to him as the Demiurgos. In the Old Testament, he is the Lord of Death, because he controls birth and death. For these phenomena exist nowhere except in the worlds of forms, or the worlds of physicality and matter. Some have attributed him to the diabolical genius of a madman who created a nightmare universe where everything as it should not be. He is the power that binds man to the world of illusion. In the German play Faust by Jonathan Wolfgang von Goethe, a drama about a man who sells his soul to the devil, this Demiurgos explains, "I am the spirit of negation," part of the power that still works for good, while ever scheming ill. When Sophia the daughter tries to escape from the nightmare, she discovers that the gates of the underworld are guarded by fearsome archons and fallen angels, thus drawing a curtain between our world and the worlds of light. This curtain of separation makes it impossible for Sophia to return to her parents, and in the Gnostic tale, Sophia is condemned to wander the earth in sorrow, searching for the light. But despite the power of this false god, who rules this world, the Demiurgos, Sophia, the daughter, manages to inject light into this material creation. Yes, the gift. Thus, the divine spark is embedded into our souls, giving each of us the power to remember who we really are and redeem the darkness from the worlds of form. Aldebaoth, becoming arrogant in spirit, boasted himself over all of those who were below him and explained, "I am Father and God, and above me there is no one." His mother, hearing him, speaks thus, cried out against him, "Do not lie, Aldebaoth, for the Father of all, the primal Anthropos, is above you, and so is Anthropos, the son of Anthropos." Anthropos is the name for the perfected one beyond gender. Thus, Gnostic theology taught that our creation can only be redeemed by the Spirit of the pure, unblemished Son who came to save his sister, restoring balance to the world through sacred union. We hear echoes of this theme in many stories of Jesus rescuing Mary Magdalene, who plays the role of the fallen daughter. We also see it in the many fairy tales of the prince rescuing the princess, a subject we shall address shortly. But in so far, more ancient time, when roles between men and women were in balance, there were also stories of the princess rescuing the prince, and the goddess who redeems the gods through the wisdom of the female. This Gnostic myth, which appeared almost 1,000 years after the Hebrew myth of the fallen angels in Genesis, it is a metaphor for the tragic human condition of our separation from the source. Sophia is the mother, is synonymous with wisdom, just as Sophia the daughter is synonymous with each of us as a soul. This is the key, the one soul, many spirits. I was always taught that we shared the same soul, and I did not understand that. And the soul I was shown was the Lord, and the Lord is an androgynous being. It is this Anthropos. It's male, female in one body. So that's what that is. The Anthropos, which is Sophia, is the feminine daughter, which is our soul. That makes a lot of sense to me. I hope that makes sense to you guys, but that really does make sense to me on a very deep level. This is why the soul was referred to as a she. Interesting. So the soul is referred to in feminine. In the Greek mysteries, Psyche, Sophia, the mother, who is wisdom herself, is the goal of all true initiates, the pearl of the great price, the great prize sought by every holy man. But in our times, her existence has been hidden. It's been eclipsed by the dark forces of the demiurgos. Even in the Christian teachings that speak about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, few of us know that the Holy Spirit is the Shekinah herself, the daughter of the breath that moves throughout creation. Without her, all that we know of would cease to exist. Without soul, it would cease to exist. In the Gnostic story of Sophia, her descent into the worlds that she created, within that she has forgotten who she is. This concept was expressed in the first level of the Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece, recounting the stories of Kore and Persephone, also called Psyche, the kernel who falls from the sacred tree of life and must now find her way back into the remembrance. She is taken in by the dark lord of the underworld, who wishes to make her his bride. This is a metaphor for each one of us, the soul who must find its way back into the light through its own free will. Intrinsic to the story's structure is the rescue of the damsel by the great mother herself, the Greek Demeter, whose name means the measure of all things. In more recent theologies, by her enlightened brother or consort, Jesus. So in this Christian tradition, Jesus becomes the Redeemer of the fallen woman, symbolized by Mary Magdalene. The analogy was perfect for the church, since the Greeks and the Romans were familiar with this earlier theology. It also neatly did away with Mary Magdalene's true role as the wife and the spiritual partner of Jesus. However, as we begin to discover the depth and the breadth of Mary's teachings, we find a female master of great enlightenment. Okay, guys, we will pick up again with the Gnostic Gospels of Mary Magdalene. I've read some of these and they're beautiful. So that'll be awesome, and I'll read those to you very soon. Oh, thank you guys so much for being with me. I love this stuff. I hope you're enjoying it. To me, it's mind-blowing, and it confirms so much of what I saw, because my relationship with this being called the Lord, it was always about explaining our family connection, and that he was part of my family, and that we were part of one great family, and within that one great family, all different kinds of free will and creation and expression would be permitted through that. And in this land of shadows, that we would see everything, evil, good, love, hate. We would see the polarity of all these options. And that through our forgetfulness, we have become victims of our own power, victims of our own true creative essence as soul and spirit, because we are creators, and by being reduced and in a veiled state where we don't remember where we come from, we don't remember our origins, we don't remember incarnations, without access to these things and the programs that we've received, we've lost our connections with what we truly are as spiritual beings, because the flesh is temporary, but the soul and spirit are eternal. So through understanding that creation in this realm is based upon an essence of separation, which is that yin, that yang, that masculine, that feminine, that push, that pull, that electromagnetic and electric universe that we're in. It's all related to spark and thought and mind. So this is a mental construct, and we have forgotten our mind. We've forgotten the eternal mind that we still are connected to. And through Source, that connection is available to us. And it's time now for us to start to remember how to reconnect with that Source connection to your higher self, you're the highest part of you. And through that, you do become the Christed being. You become the Christ, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. So these teachings, to me, it helps solidify, family and masculine, feminine polarity in this, level of creation, which is based upon polarity. We have masculine, feminine, we have birth, we have death, we have hot, we have cold, we have love, we have hate. Everything is like love and hate are the same frequency. They're just sitting at complete opposite ends of the electromagnetic field with positive and negative polarities, but they're actually coming from the same frequency base, because it's one of the most powerful. So understanding that we're vibrational beings based upon thought, and starting to understand that we have a greater connection to a greater mind, and that greater mind and that greater connection is through that divine marriage that you have within your own being. And I think this is what we're all trying to accomplish, and we're all going to find it maybe different ways or through different channels of information at different times. But we need to come together as a collective to start to remember what it is to have soul and what it is to be filled with spirit and to be animating in the flesh. So I think that we are doing that, and I think that that is going to be the key for many of us to actually truly be free and have the freedom for your soul to express in maybe different levels of creation that aren't land of shadows, and maybe take a vacation into some of the lands of light. Because I think a lot of us have earned it, and it's like a vacation when you get to go and spend time in the higher realms of creation. Tap into your genetics. Those memories are inside of you. They are inside of your genetic codes. They're inside of your blood. You have these glimpses of these higher realms and these higher existences. So find them within your own self, because one small glimpse, it helps you remember other parts of yourself and potentially where you've come from before this existence, and what you've experienced as a soul and a spirit and a being. And remembering these things, it helps you. I can't explain so fully how, because I can't even explain how. It's like you get a piece of yourself back, and it's through this remembering. And I was always told, you got to remember. You got to bring back the parts of yourself that will help you remember who you truly are. And this is a process of remembering. So be patient with yourself and find the different ways that you can remember who you are as a spiritual being, because we're all very unique and we've all done lots of different things. And through that is your unique vibration, your unique spiritual soul print or fingerprint of creation. It's a soul print. It's an energy vibrational print, which is multidimensional, because you guys are multidimensional beings existing on multiple layers of reality all simultaneously. So we are amazing, beautiful souls and spirits operating in a construct and trying to remember the different aspects of what we truly are, so we can come into our power and reawaken our sleeping, dormant, latent abilities that are waiting to be birthed forth. And those will come through our will and our imagination. And through your imagination, you will start to remember the parts of you that have been lost and forgotten. And it seems like this is what we're doing. We're remembering ourselves. We're gathering ourselves and reconnecting to ourselves. And through that process, we're also reconnecting to each other. So it's a beautiful thing. And it's such a gift to come into this awareness and to come into an alignment with a community of people who are seeking to remember what we are and who we are and how to make what we are the best we can. And I am so grateful for that. So thank you, Soul Tribe, and thank you for resonating in a vibration that we can come into alignment with, so we can help each other through this process of reawakening. And through that reawakening, start to manipulate our reality and bring, hopefully, a little heaven to earth, because I think it's due. And we are the ones that we were waiting for, and it will come through us. It will come through no other means. It won't come from anything outside of us. It'll come through us, connecting with our family, and even this means family outside of this planet. And that's big. So it's time to expand our minds and connect with all of ourself. And that means family, galactic family, solar constructs, solar lords, karma lords, archons, all the way to the top. Start to remember all of it and grab as much of it as you can and digest it, and then you'll get more. Grab a hold of it, digest it, and then you'll get more. And like I said, whatever we get, we have to understand none of it's 100% going to be true for any of us because we're all experiencing a little bit different. So we really need to have a little room for our differences and focus on how we can unify rather than get tripped up over details of how things are operating, because all of us are going to see things a little bit different, and that's okay. And that's the beautiful gift of diversity and seeing the fullness of how God can see it, because God sees it through each of us, and each of us are perceiving it in our own unique way. So God gets to see all of it through us. And that perspective, it's huge. So understand, the more we connect, the more of that perspective we need to be able to process. And through that non-judgment and the allowing of all those different perceptions is how you integrate as a fuller, more capable, more comprehensive being, because you're seeing more of the truth, because the truth is going to include all of it. So within all of it, the truth is going to look different from different perspectives, but the highest truth will always be standing in truth. But boy, you got to get through a lot of layers of belief and programs and all that stuff to even get closer to the higher levels of truth and wisdom. And that's a tough conundrum, because the more you know, the more you understand that you don't know. And that's kind of like the all and the nothing. And see, and that's when you're getting into non-judgment and you're going into 0 point, because you're understanding that all that you know is from what you can perceive and comprehend and understand as a being. But someone else, they might be at a whole different level, and it might be a higher level or a lower level, and it doesn't matter, because it's where they're at on their level of awakening and their level of evolution. And all of us being in these different positions, again, is how we get the fullness. So none of it's wrong, none of it's right, none of it's good, none of it's bad. I see it as an is, and in its isness is the fullness of creation. So learn to have compassion for all of it, because through that we get to learn so much more about ourselves and about each other. So I love you guys more than you will ever know. From the biggest part of my being to the furthermost edges to the cosmos. Soul Tribe, thank you. I love you much. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.